Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Welcome to the State of Recruitment webinar hosted by Zappy Hire. We are really glad to have you all with us on this webinar, and I hope that you all find this very informative and find some insights that's going to help you in how, your recruitment and talent acquisition processes go about. So to start off, in today's session, we are going to be talking about we're going to be covering various topics where we are going to talk about how AI is transforming high volume recruitment. What are the best practices of adopting AI in talent acquisition? What are some of the apprehensions people have in adopting AI in HR and talent acquisition processes? We are also going to talk about how background verification, the automation of it, and how AI has also come into the background verification process. And then we are going to end with what is the future of recruitment technology looking like in the coming year. So the speakers are going to be touching upon these various topics. We are going to end the session with a question and answer session that we are going to have it at the end. So you can put that up on the chat on your right side. And then to move to the speaker introductions, we have three speakers in our panel today, starting with Kartik from Springworks, who is the CEO and founder. And Kartik has been kind of revolutionizing the workplace culture through innovative solutions in background verification and employee engagement. His entrepreneurial journey includes creating Autobudder, which reached 4 million users, and he's been recognized as a Kairos Global Fellow. Even he has been advocating for immigration reform at the White House. And then for Deepu, who's a co-founder of Zappy Hire, he has had extensive experience in AI, machine learning, and product management, having led roles at Infosys, Bosch, and Oracle. He has been recognized as a young leader by Economic Times in 2012. He serves as a mentor at Kerala Knowledge Economy Mission and also speaks at global conferences on a regular basis. And then we have Jyotis, who's also the co-founder of Zappy Hire. He has 19 years of experience in the IT and AI management experiences. He has held roles in Cognizant, Infosys, Cognicore, and is a Stanford seed consultant and mentor for Kerala startups. So that's the introductions we have about the speakers we have on the panel today. I am co-moderating with my colleague Sahid, who will be taking over from here and going to pose the questions we have for the discussion today. So yeah, over to you, Sahid.
Hey, hi everyone. How's it going? Okay. I
Good.
think, okay. Let's start with the first question. Uh, so, Jyotis, I want to know that based on your experience of talking to people and in your experience, and we'll go to Deepu and Karthik next. How is AI helping organizations scale the recruitment? And at what stages do you see AI being integrated in the recruitment processes?
Right. Thank you so much, Zakir, for that question. When you look at the recruitment, entire spectrum of the recruitment, there are multiple stages or touch points where we can integrate AI, especially the initial part of the recruitment, which is like sourcing or even screening part of it, right? Because that's most important area because most of the recruiters spend a lot of time with this screening part of it, right? And just not that, but many places where scheduling of the interviews, giving the right recommendation of different assessments, and even offer letter generation, right? So all of these cases where we have identified around 16 plus cases we have identified where we can be potentially automate some of the tasks in the recruitment space. um, it's not AI as a decision maker, but more like an enabler in their entire process. Just an example, recently we come up with something called a Zappy View. It's an automated way of screening the candidate by asking the right skill-based questions. So that is something which is very much catching up within the market. We have seen great potential in terms of its growth as well. So similarly, I've seen that in the entire market is going a lot of automation, where they are identifying very simple and repetitive tasks, and that's a good candidate in order to do the automation.
That's, yeah, I agree, because I think sourcing part is where most companies would initially benefit. So this was a high volume call.
I think Sahit had some trouble. DP wanted to add anything on the
Yeah,
topic? Yeah.
sure. So I think we lost Sahid in between. But I think just to add to, to continue from where you stopped, Joseph. So primarily when we look at recruitment as a landscape, there are multiple stages, starting from manpower planning, when an organization, the sales team or the business development sees an opportunity and the opportunity is recorded in their CRM or the sales ERP. That moment onwards, the requisition process kickstarts. So the automation, when you look at it, it could be from a predictive hiring process. Okay, I have these many requisitions in place, and this could potentially lead up to these many open positions in my organization. So right from that manpower planning all the way to the offer letter generation, the entire span of activity, if you look at it, there is always this opportunity to automate and bring intelligence and AI into place to help them scale, run at scale. Now, just going a little bit more deeper into the separate buckets of processes of recruitment, we covered upon the manpower planning. Yes, that's a critical step to enable, an on-time sourcing or to a greater extent a predictive hiring. It starts from the manpower planning. Then you have the candidates coming into the system. There, the screening, as Joseph was mentioning rightly, the Zappy view, in the likes of Zappy, there are a lot of area where the screening can be totally automated, wherein the bulk of the activity, a lot of this manual activity, which otherwise the recruiters have to do, can be automated. From there, when the interviewers have to get involved, the scheduling, which is again now the very administrative but crucial, but again a messy process, to ensure that you get the right interviewer, you get the right time slot from the interviewer, and you don't have ghosting. People show up for the interview, both the candidate and the interviewers. Right from there, all the way till data collection, engaging with the candidates, that entire process and the span of recruitment activity, we now see that there's a potential of automation and intelligence, adoption. Just one small line that I would like to add here is, earlier there was a point when we started Zappy Hub back in 2018. We tried to cover all these things, and we were like, it's a very good thing to have, but difficult to do when it comes to intelligence. Still, we were trying our level best. But now, with the advent of the LLMs and the intelligence, it's kind of heavily democratized now. Everyone is expecting, okay, now that since ChatGPT can do it, or Claude can do it, or Copilot can do it, I want this in the system also. So that expectation, setting is really high from stakeholders, but they want everywhere, AI to be there, but it is our, responsibility to do it in a scalable and ethical fashion. So to answer your question, yes, the entire span of activity, we have now, the capability and the responsibility to make it intelligent, Sahid.
Got it. Moving on to Karthik, do you want to add anything?
Sure. So, I think both Deepu and Jyotis are a lot more, I think, way more expertise than me on the, entire recruitment space. But I'll speak from my own experience on how we run recruitment with, with a team of 3 TAs, right? So, and where I see AI kind of, helping us right now, and where I think, AI would help us in the next, say near term, right? I don't want to talk about the long term as of now. So one is just even the act of making a JD, deciding which questions to ask. Hiring manager comes to you and says, "Oh, I want to hire a growth marketer." I'm like, what does a growth marketer even mean, right? Like, how do you even distill that to what people actually have on their resumes, right? What are the different technologies used? Can we look at existing folks and find their common skills, keywords, tags, whatnot. Look at some of the people in the industry, right? The way we do is we go to LinkedIn, find 5, 10 people's profiles, and we say, is this a fit, right? Leave the point that will they work with us or not, but would they be a perfect fit for this role? And hiring manager says yes, then you potentially have at least a starting point for the JD, because hiring managers are really bad in building out JDs, right? Second is doing reminder calls, right? So we have recently started, working with Bland. It's a Y Combinator, company which does can do AI, calling to remind candidates to join, meetings, interview schedules, whatnot, right? Helps you at least remove some of the TA work. A lot of TAs, I'm sure, will appreciate that, that goes in doing calendar management of the hiring manager and of the candidate. Hiring manager will at the last minute say, "Oh no, I can't do it now. I'm pushed by 15 minutes." Right? Everything goes for a toss, right? How do you kind of handle these situations? I don't know if we have a perfect solution for this, but I think we are getting to that. And then finally, the just taking interview feedback. I believe, I am also very bad at writing interview feedback to kind of give feedback to the TA, and many of us are not really good hiring managers, interviewers, but we have these, we use Sibyl, which is a note taker type of app, and kind of gives you at least 3 4 points. You take that feedback, put it in your wherever system, so at least the next person knows which questions have been asked, what did the person answer, right? So it helps you cut down maybe 5 10 minutes of your interview and make it more tailored. That itself is I think a long way to go. So that those small things help. Now there are free tools for this, right? There's Fireflies, Gong, whatnot, right? Which you can probably do without really paying for a note taker type of tool, right? And then of course, Chat GPT, right from JD to interview questions to evaluating, give it 10 resumes and say, can you please stack rank them, right? Those type of things. And of course, when you hit scale, that's when I guess Zappy Hire kind of comes in.
Yeah, I that's a great. Yeah, I think I agree with what you said, and many we will come to that in the next segment. But I have a
Mhm.
question for the audience, right? How many of you in the audience are involved in high volume recruiting, like involving for lots of roles in a quarter? You can just put in yes in the comments, or if you want to put a number, yes, 100 in a quarter. That will just we want to know how many of you are still, facing this issue and using AI. Right. So, Karthik, what you said, coming to the next question is right. Hiring at a scale is difficult or is easy by AI. But how do you maintain that human connection at scale? Right. In
Yeah.
scheduling interviews, 15 minutes. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's a unsolved problem as of now, at least where I stand. But we, in Spring Verify, we do 500 calls a day for people to fill up the background verification form, and I'll talk about it more later. And I was going through the results. A lot of people don't even guess it's AI. Like, I think it's probably already at a level like voice AI where they don't know. Yes, I think some people, if you ask certain questions, you will figure out, right? Say, for example, "Oh, I cannot attend the interview today. My grandmother is not well. I have to take her to the hospital." AI humans will be, "Oh, I don't know what to answer. Take a step, take a pause, probably reply after a few seconds." AI will have an answer right there, right? Because it's already has those, flows. Will have empathy, but you can guess it's AI, right? So I think there are ways. But then, we were having this debate internally. I don't know if everything requires human connection, right? Like, yes, recruiting by nature is human, but reminders, scheduling, right? First level of resume building, screening, that may not require humans, right? We have better things to do in our life. It does not mean the jobs are going away, but there are so much more to do. Right? We put out a job, we get 1,000 resumes. No one in their right mind can go through that, right? So to your question, I don't know if you need human connection at every step. You definitely need in certain steps, and that's where AI has to help remove these manual, repetitive things, take free up time for you to actually focus on the human connection, to go deeper with every candidate, right? To We are remote, very hard to kind of see facial expressions, not sit in a room and all. But that's where the human connection comes. If my recruiters are able to spend, instead of 2 minutes, 5 minutes a candidate, but spend 30 minutes having a conversation beyond work, we might actually do better in recruiting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Uh, Jyotis or Deepu, do you have anything different that you?
Yeah, I mean, so I totally agree with what Karthik is saying, but still there should be a connection in terms of how the candidate is getting engaged within this process, right? Um, as I mentioned before, there are tasks which can be very simple and repetitive in nature, where you don't need a human to do it again and again. Um, taken out that clerical work from the recruitment and push that effort into more strategical relationship with this candidate. For example, let's say instead of spending time to call these people and schedule it, instead they can have a more engagement or a strategical conversation with the candidates who are about to join, right? And talk about the company culture, and because sales and hiring is very very similar. So we need to talk and we need to sell the culture of the company and make sure that they are joining with us and so on and so forth. So um, even when I think even Sappy here, when we building that entire product line, what one thing which we kept in mind that we use AI, but that is more as a tool to empower the recruiters than a decision maker. So it should go well virtue with entire balance between the human effort, and there are places where we cannot replace humans. Of course, AI is not yet to that level, like right mentioned by Karthik, right? So there are situations where we need to showcase some kind of empathy to the candidates. So obviously, AI is not yet there. Hopefully, next couple of decades we will not be there as well. Until that moment, we need people to do all of this, human touch at the end of the day, instead of try to replace everywhere with the AI, right? Yeah, I think it should have a good blend of these two and get the maximum ROI out of it. So this word is very important whenever we implement a technology. What is the return we are getting out of it? Which would definitely decide the decision makers to not just implement, but later stages, measure the ROI and understand how this is impacting the overall recruitment process. Over to you, Dibu.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much in line. Maybe slight difference. I mean, I wouldn't say difference in opinion, but slight difference perspective would be. See, I mean, how much ever we say that technology can replace a lot of different things, but one thing which I believe in is, you know, technology can potentially help you to scale. But if you need to connect, you need to have that empathy or that emotional intelligence in place, because now is the time when you have hiring, time to hire can be better, quality of hire can be better. With technology, you can do that. But on the day when you're supposed to join, when you're supposed to show up in the office, no technology can, predict that whether this candidate is going to show up on day one or not. For that, you need that connect. The recruiter need to talk to the person. And even in a small company like ours, where we have around 40 people, the recruiters can literally say that, hey, Deepu or Joseph, I feel that this person may not join. And that is the output of that connect that this recruiter is having with the candidate. So that's why I said technology can help you scale, but you need to have that empathy and personal thing to connect with the candidate, especially from a talent acquisition perspective. Just very, as Joseph was saying, sales and hiring is important. Just like how we say that for closing a deal, you need to go in person, right? You can see the sales cycle comes really low when you literally meet the prospect. Very similarly, you need to have that connect with the candidate also when you have to close that deal, which means the person has to join the organization. Point number one. So, which brings to the point too that we believe, as a matter of fact, rather than me personally, I think the industry generally accepts the fact that technology can be at the fore, but human should be at the core when it comes to human resource. You need to have the people. So that is where human connection at scale is important. And how do we do that? Maybe take a hybrid approach of that initial application or the sourcing until maybe the couple of rounds of interview. You try to automate the top of the funnel when you have a bulk of candidates, handle it in a seamless manner, automated, which is okay because you get the real interested candidates going down the funnel. And then the real human recruiters have to take over from there, where you are actually connecting with them, understanding with them, it's selling each other what they are offering, what they have on the table, and take it up from there. So I think personalization with this advent of AI, it is very easy to do. But again, as Karthik said, okay, I mean, it may be very difficult for us, a person, to identify whether it's a human or a computer at play at the background. But there will be a point wherein that emotional aspect has to be there to convince and give that extra mileage to that entire conversation and relationship that is happening. So end of the day, from a human from a communication perspective or human connection perspective, I believe that AI should be utilized to create more meaningful conversations than creating fewer conversations and making the process faster. It's all about creating the content, creating quality and engagement, creating empathy and emotional in this engagement, so that you get that right people with the right mindset to join the organization. Because you want the people to join the organization with a sense of, I'm proud to join here. I know what is in stock. I know what I want to offer. So those things, I think, might be a better idea, to give a slight weightage to that human connection, maybe down the funnel, not in the beginning part, because it's insane for us to think that, as Karthik suggested, to skim through the thousands of resumes and still maintain the human connection. Not possible, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, those are all great points, Deepu, and I think you do have a point in maintaining a human connection. But coming on to the next part is right. We did come to concessions, right? AI is very important in the beginning part. Can you hear me well?
Um,
Yeah.
Yep.
But
yeah,
there are still companies that have some apprehensions on integrating AI. Right now, those could be larger companies, legacy companies, or maybe smaller companies not wanting to invest that much. So those, how can you address those apprehensions? Right. Why don't we go with you, Deepu, because
yeah.
you're saying.
True that when you're talking about something new, there are 2 dimensions. One, it's an anxiety factor would be there. There'll be a curiosity factor at play, and then there is a fear factor would be there. FOMO, fear of missing out. It's a mix of all these things when it comes to a new technology or a new perspective, right? So what we have seen when we talk to customers, when we look at the competition, when we look at the blogs and the content out there in the market, one thing which I've seen is that people have this baggage of fear. They, so whether this will work out, whether this result will be biased or not. It's not because of this recent thing. I would say back when we started Zapier in 2018, that was the time when we were reading an article. I don't want to take the name of that organization, but they were having this resume, one of the biggest e-commerce giants. So they were having this resume parsing application, which will screen candidates. And I think in a few months, they have to shelve that entire initiative because it was giving weightage to male candidates. So they had to shelve that entire thing down. It's a very prominent company. So now, and it's very popular in news as well. So now, if you look at it, the problem was not with the algorithm. The problem was not with the recruiters or the hiring managers or the management. The problem was with the data that they use for to train the system. Now, they use their own data for the past 10 years where more male candidates were hired. For good or bad, we don't know, maybe due to the nature of job, due to multiple aspects. But culture has changed, people have changed, expectations have changed, responsibilities have changed. But still, the data that you used to train the system was the previous 10 years data. And the system can't be better than the data which it is used to train for, right? Now, these things are there in the back of the head when a decision maker or a stakeholder is considering AI systems. Now, coming to that point, fear of bias is one of the biggest concern. Whether this will give me a proper result. So even when we try to sell ZappyView or ZappyHair, we get a lot of this question: how are you ensuring bias is not there? How are you ensuring hallucination doesn't happen? How do you ensure that the data is actually making sense to the context of the organization? How are you ensuring that the result that you show is specific to India geography or to the US market? A lot of questions comes when it comes to enterprise selling. Now that bias is the biggest problem. And then another aspect is people want intelligence. Okay, people want the entire recommendation, but they don't want the data to be shared outside of their realm. But the basics is that the system has to get trained in some way or the other. So naturally, if you're not paying for the product, the philosophy, you are the product type. So if you're not paying, or even if you're paying to an extent, there are the I agree things which will ensure that, which you don't read at all, maybe it will ensure that whatever you use is actually going into the drain and then they take it for training, right? So organizations have, in addition to the fear of bias, they have a concern whether my data, the organization data, is actually put into the public for training. That is the second apprehension. The third one is, even if people say or not, whether this is going to replace me, that even though we say it will remove, replace a lot of this administrative mundane tasks, which is all true, but that apprehension is there, whether these things are going to replace me or my profile. Even though what we believe in is that this advent of AI will just ensure that, you help them to make more strategic decisions, you help them to make more complex decisions and not replacing them, right? End of the day, we are not getting into that. But this apprehension is also there. So these are some of the apprehensions that what we have seen in the industry when we are trying to, sell and make them adopt AI systems ahead.
Got it. Yeah, those are. Yeah, I think the bias part is one of the biggest things. And then, as you were saying, I think there was a recent news where apparently the manager's resume was in fact rejected for the same role.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah. So Karthik, do you want to add, because you might also face similar kind of apprehensions in your uh, company?
Yeah, I think obviously from the HR perspective is more around job security, job safety, and infosec is always around data security. What happens? Where is it being used? What are the biases? Things like that. And then the management, I think mostly is are we going to be missing out on potential like potentially good hires, right? So these apprehensions are always there. How do you address them is you have to look at pros and cons. Like with anything, you have to build up a business case. Okay, this is going to help us solve this problem at this cost, and we are saving X amount of time, X amount of money. Hence, we are okay with this risk, right? And do it in steps, right? You cannot, like, we have an HR help desk tool. You cannot put it up and say, oh, it's going to now start answering questions about salary, your leaves. But can you do leave policies? Can you do your GST numbers, your across the company benefits, whatnot? Those are easier, low risk. Someone says, okay, what's our leave policy? The bot says, oh, you only have 5 leaves a year. The person definitely knows there's something wrong, right? So very low risk there, where you're able to kind of have these guardrails built in and look at the feedback, and that's how to solve these apprehensions by focusing, building a business case with pros and cons, having enough guardrails in the system, choosing a platform really well where you are able to see every question or every interaction with AI. You are able to understand the reasoning behind the AI's answer, or having an audit log type of thing. This is, if you pick up something like a chat GPT, you might not always have the full flexibility, transparency, especially if everyone in the company has their own accounts, things like that, which is why ideal to go with a tool where you can have your own guardrails and systems built in under the purview of the company, right? Other than leaving it completely open is the challenge.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, putting up guardrails and ensuring that the content putting out is also moderated to an extent. Right. So this, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I completely agree with Karthik and Deepu what they said, but I also wanted to bring another perspective to it. When we started discussing with a couple of companies while we are starting implementing the AI into the recruitment space, there are two major things comes from their mind, right? One is, or major questions comes from their mind. One is, what is the ROI we are getting out of this, right? Or can we just do the digitalization, or should we do really the automation? And the second is the cost factor. Since you guys are using GPUs, and is it too costly for us to bear, or should we have an enterprise to do the implementation, so on and so forth. So the first point were about the ROI part. I think the most of the people they are little excited about the technology, but sometimes they're missing to identify the right use case to implement the AI, right? Because the right ROI comes from identifying the right use cases. Where exactly that problem, or how can I save X dollars if I implemented this particular solution, right? So that thought process will definitely help them to drill down and identify the use cases first properly. and then a proper projection in terms of what the savings they're going to do in the next 3 years or 4 years type, which would give them a very confident in terms of the ROI they are going to get out of this implementation. I have seen that people are just go with sometimes the trend of getting sourcing or getting sourcing through AI and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's not the right approach for them to do it. Maybe the best thing is to do is the screening part of it, or the best thing is to do it in the offer letter generation part. So it's up to each thought leaders in the company to identify the right use cases and implement that uh, in a way that they will get the best ROI part. Second, in terms of the cost, that has been changed a lot in the market, because with the cost of the automation, you start getting um, the AI part of it, right? So it's not that you need to always spend a large amount of dollars in order to implement something in AI. That is done. That era is done. So now people are coming up with the solutions which is pretty pocket friendly and still can do a lot of automation and get the correct ROI out of it. Um, as these people already mentioned about the security is something which is really a big concern, especially if you look at the US market. They started thinking to use their own data centers instead of building or sharing the data to any other external companies or tools like ChatGPT. Because even though we are using ChatGPT very frequently, but end of the day, it knows everything about you. It's captured all this information and so on and so forth. Because even recently we did internally that we asked a question: can you draw a picture about me based on what you understand about me in ChatGPT? And apparently it shows everything about you, your family, and all of the things, right? So you imagine that how much information it's capturing while you're interacting with the ChatGPT and storing it, right? So now you think from a business standpoint, it's not always advisable to share this kind of information to a third party, especially like a chat gpt, which they probably use it for a number of use cases. We don't know yet, right? It's kind of a black box at that moment. So this is all are very important points to look at it. And the trend has started where they probably differentiate the data and the AI logic separately, so that data will resides within the organization and AI or the logic of the AI can be shared in the SaaS world. So it's a good hybrid mix of SaaS and on internally deployed solutions. Maybe the world is moving towards to it. Probably we need to wait for another 1 or 2, 3 years to see the full path for the same.
I think
I'll just add one more point, Sahid here. Like, I mean, when Joseph was mentioning about the logic part, right? One thing which what we have seen is even we, when we personally use certain systems, we would be more comfortable when we see how did you arrive at this decision. When somebody says that, okay, this is the recommendation that I'm doing, maybe it's ChatGPT or even ChatGPT did the same thing recently. If you see some of the results when they give a tag next to it, what is the source of this data? So that in the AI world, we call it like the explainable AI. Like the moment a system gives out, okay, this candidate is good, or this in the talent acquisition space, or this candidate's BGV seems to be not that great, it's a red flag, maybe based on something on the academics or the work experience or on the civil check, criminal check, ID check. So Karthik can maybe add more to it. But these are some of the basic 5 dimensions based on which a BGV is done. Similarly, when we're talking about recruitment, you talk about the personality, the cultural match, the technical match, the relevant work experience, the academic match, skill match. There are multiple parameters based on which we say this candidate is good, average, or bad. No, there is nothing like a bad candidate. There is nothing like a bad job. Just that the match is not perfect, right? So that way, when we say or give a score, if we can also say why this, why an 8 out of 10 or why a 3 out of 10, the make it more explainable. That is when over a period of time, maybe give it a couple of months, the recruiters or the TA experts will be comfortable. Yeah, this makes sense. These guys give the details and now the result makes sense. Maybe 2 months later, they won't even bother to look at hover over and see what is explanation. They will feel comfortable. They'll feel confident in the system that this is not biased. And also, once in a while or once in a month or a quarter, you give this report on diversity or inclusivity or the entire demographic conversion rates to show that it's not really biasing, it's not, there is no bias in the system. So it's all about convincing the stakeholders that we are doing a proper job, and please come here, we have it all recorded and you can take a note of it. So it's about giving confidence. It's a new paradigm, right? It's a paradigm shift. I mean, did we ever think 2 years back that we can just come into a system, type anything, and you get an answer? Like for this thing, you ask this question, I could have gone to Claude or Anthropic Claude or ChatGPT, right? Hey, I'm in a panel discussion. This is the question. These are the things which the other two panelists gave. Give me something else so that I can talk. I'll get a result here, right? We didn't even fathom that the situation would have come 1 year back. Like in the last 6 to 8 months, things have changed upside down. So now to get adjusted to this paradigm shift, you need to give some time. If you, when you speak to kids, when you teach them, when they're really young, they ask why. The same questions our recruiters and our TA experts would have. So you need to, the thing is that since we are in a disconnected digital world, they won't come to us. So we have to give that in the system. Why this decision, right? So this explainability is something which we are actively doing in Zappy Hire and Zappy View. Why we are taking this decision. And I believe that that is one of the key aspects which we have seen, stakeholders and customers feel, okay, I mean, not to be too worried, the result is correct. And just sort of adding that.
Got it. That also adds weight to that. This is an informed decision. While it is by AI, I still know the context behind the decision. Yeah, that's a great point. Jyotish, you touched upon the topic. I'll come to Karthik as well. Karthik, do you want to add anything in the previous topic? Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Jyotish, you talked about ROI and what AI with AI does. So, how does AI impact the recruitment ROI? And how does one measure, like HR teams can measure the metrics for that ROI?
Sure. So, if you look at the ROI of recruitment, we can actually measure it in multiple dimensions. I think we should do it. One is the cost of the hiring. Nothing. It's a very straightforward, which is tightly linked with the time to hire measure, right? So, because how fast you are getting that resources within the time frame, and how good they are performing within the team, all that would be a great matter. The second aspect is the candidate engagement or the candidate experience, in fact, right? Because that's one parameter where I think it's people are taking it very, very seriously. That irrespective of you hired or not hired that particular candidate, how they you know get that entire experience while they are in that process, right? Um, which is actually a good way of creating a brand within that audience, and then give them a feel that, oh, that company is really good because I got all the right knowledge about where is my candidature are, and my very clear about what is going to happen next. Those kind of things. It's not a rocket science, by the way. It's a very simple way of informing them about each steps we are there in the entire recruitment process. Similarly, the branding and the brand, the entire, the entire spectrum of this candidate engagement also is very important. So, for example, when a candidate come and apply, are you showcasing some good videos about their culture, why they should join with us? So those kind of the touch points are right way of or right stages where we can teach, or we can actually tell about the entire audience that why should you guys join that to improve this entire brand legacy. So if you look at it ROI perspective, if I conclude it, I would definitely look at the time to hire, which is nothing but the cost to hire. It's a very important factor. Second, we need to look at it, that entire candidate experience. It's again an important factor in order to understand or measure the ROI. There are different frameworks to do the measurement of the same. And the third aspect is the branding, the brand of, branding, which is, or even by default, it's happening throughout the recruitment because we are interacting with the third party. So you don't need to be always think about the branding with marketing. It can be definitely taken with the, hiring process as well, as we are interacting with a larger portion of the people outside the company.
Yeah, That's great. Just going off script, talking about my own personal experience of joining Zappy Hire. I think it was a week's time where I was into the last stage, and I was very informed, and so that actually helped me take a decision of that. Oh yeah, this is there. So yeah. So Deepu and Karthik, do you want to add anything to what Jyotish said? Maybe measuring the ROI or metrics. Deepu, you're mute.
Sorry. So maybe just to add, I mean, a couple of points to it. That candidate experience, that net promoter score is something which I believe, like as you Sahil just now said, right? You had a good experience of joining Zappy Hire. Now, when you're talking to your friends, that net promoter score, the NPS improvement, this entire thing, that is one thing which, that is one of the ROI that you see, because right from day one, even if it is not a in-person, engagement, it could be something by the system, but you're always updated. And another aspect is what we have seen in talent acquisition is maybe around 90% people get rejected, or 95, or even more than gets rejected. Now, what is that they can take away? Right? So with this, if a recruiter was physically doing it, then there is so much that he can do. And as I said in the beginning, and as Karthik was also mentioning, it's insane to expect a recruiter to, personally call up, hey, unfortunately we couldn't select you. These are the improvement area. This is what we liked about you. Well, that is what we typically prefer, right? You go to a wedding, and if the host is not even bothering you when they are going back, you feel bad. You spend time to visit that wedding, and they're not even bothering you. You just have your food and come out. It's not like that, right? You want the host to talk to you. You want the host to say, hey, good that you took out time, you came here. Very similar to that, when a candidate is spending time with the organization, it is imperative that you have to spend time with them. You have to, maybe the quality ones. So there with this AI also, you can automate a lot of those engagements, even if you're rejected, rather than just nowadays, not even a rejection mail goes. There's a point like that. But forget about that. Even if you're sending an automated rejection mail, imagine there is a note along with that. This is what we liked about you. Maybe if you're open to in knowing your improvement area, click this link. You click that, then we show these are the improvement areas suggested by the interviewer, so that we just thought of giving a constructive feedback. And this all can be automated. Entire process can be automated. So those are the takeaways which 95% of the candidates who gets rejected take away from the system, from the organization. Now imagine what Joseph was mentioning about the branding part. In addition to the branding videos, in addition to the collaterals that you're showing, you're giving that emotional connect. You're leaving an emotional connect to the candidate, that even if you are rejected, we understand why. We want you to know how you can improve. We want to be in touch with you again. We want to support you in your journey. So that emotional connect and the NPS is something which I thought I'll add as a major ROI because if you look at it, 50% candidate, 50% employer, that is what recruitment is all about. Right? So we are talking about the ROI of that 50%, that is the employer. But what about the remaining 50%, that's the candidate? The experience that they're getting, the total, satisfaction level, and then net promoter score. So as an organization or as a product, Zappy or Zappy Hair, we give this feature. Like for example, I can recall we had a very detailed discussion when we were initially discussing the requirements of Zappy. Do we need to add a feature to share feedback back to the candidate? We spoke to few prospective customers and our existing customers. They said, no, we don't want to say what went wrong. But there were few customers who said, we would like to do that, maybe on a case-to-case basis. So then we thought, okay, let's add an optional feature. If they want, click on a button so that the improvement area and the analysis would be sent back to the customer, to the candidate. So there are some companies who give a lot of weightage to that. So that also potentially could be added as an ROI. Yeah, just sort of adding that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and yeah, would definitely agree. Uh, Karthik, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think both of them have summarized really well. As a CEO, I think the ROI is, for at least the way we measure right now is how much time have we saved, right? And where have we been able to put that extra time, right? Is it helping us close the candidate, faster? Is it helping us, deliver a better candidate experience, right? Which we look at, Glassdoor as a metric, how many, what feedback we've gotten from candidates, not just employees. I think these two, numbers are like some immediate ROI which you can probably see. Obviously, there's long-term ROI, quality of hire, retention, whatnot. But I think these two are probably like you implement something today, you probably should see results in a week, right? It should be that quick.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Continue with Karthik. Karthik, talking about background verification. verification part, right?
Mhm.
So with advent of AI, the BGV part is also, changing. Can you just talk about where are the areas where traditional background verification miss out?
Yeah, so traditional background verification is very focused on, just doing fact checking. They get a bunch of documents, and they ask candidates for everything. And the forms are not really very optimized for online or phones or whatnot. They're all, like give us all your details, we'll go, verify, right? So it comes from a very position of authority, almost borderline, like a private investigator, right? Whereas that's not the case, right? It's not really getting into the depth of, okay, how does this person work, right? How can I get some of the softer, verification aspects, right? Does this person work better in a, individual capacity or as a team capacity, right? Those type of things. You know, what type of projects did the person do in the past, right? Like a reference check, for example. A reference check is generally part of background verification, and that's like asking 5 questions. When did you work with this person? How long did you work with this person? What was your capacity working with this person? Very boring, just one word answers and that's it, right? It's not really going into the depth of the person. Fact checking is obviously very important, but the next step is, how can you go deeper, actually understand beyond the hiring, beyond the BGV aspect of a compliance. You've checked that box of compliance. How would you, as an HR, ensure this person's success and retention in the company, right? That's where I think some of these, new technologies can come in. This used to happen with HRs doing reference calls and, doing, their amount of background checking, but was just not scalable in today's world where they have thousand other things to do, right? HRs are probably one of the most diversified job functions where they have everything which no one else is doing is given to HR. Right? It's sad, but they are, like the Swiss Army knife in many ways, right? So how do we automate, or how do we put in, AI and technology in some of their jobs, at least to free up, time for them?
So yeah, talking about what you just said, right? How AI automation. Can you just talk about how both of them AI automation is uh, increasing accurate? Is it increasing accuracy? Is it speeding up things? How does it really impact BGB?
So, I would say right now it's at the phase of improving the, turnaround time. So decreasing the turnaround time, improving the, speed, not so much on the accuracy. Accuracy comes in later. So, one of the examples I was mentioning earlier is we do 500 calls a day, with AI, and it's just calling, right, for reminders, you know, in understanding, okay, the person says, I will fill the form today, the AI will automatically call tomorrow, right? The person says, I don't have this email, I can't find this email, where is it, right? It'll automatically trigger the email. Person says, no, I'm on a vacation now, the AI will call 3 days later, right? So those type of small things are so much easier. 500 calls a day would require a team of 3 4 people, to do that manually. And, to build out all of these edge cases are very hard to do, from a human perspective. AI can do this better, where it's just one thing and you do that really well. The second is, background verification has insufficiencies, right? You say, you want to do your, education verification, but you don't have your mark sheet because it's with your parents at, at your home, huh? You are living in, Bangalore, you don't have the mark sheet. How do you do that? So you have to ask your parents. They'll whatever, open up the cupboards, open up the lofts, get up a, get your mark sheet, take a photo, send it to you, right? All of that takes time. And people forget, right? We have so many things to do in today's world. So this is where AI comes in, picks up the phone and says, hey, we are still waiting for your mark sheet. This is where you can get it. This is how the mark sheet looks like, whatever, right? It should have these details. When can you get that to us? Your background verification, very important to your employment at Zappy Hire, for example, right? So small things like that, go a long way, right? And finally, your ref checks, right? Ref checks are a, pet peeve of me, right? You have traditional ref checks are 10 questions, one word answers on an email or a Google form. That's it. It's so hard to really do that. I can probably do a much better ref check, on the phone versus in writing. And AI can do that. Yes, humans can do it, but it's so hard to scale that. where I can have a conversation with AI and talk for 5 minutes, I'll probably get a lot more details than 5 minutes of typing, because you can talk a lot more, and you can do follow-up questions, right? Each question is going deeper and deeper into the ref check, right? So that's how I think the ref checks can be improved, which is what we have right now. And finally, your follow-ups with employment, education, all these type of stakeholders, so where you have to continuously follow up, can give to get them get the latest result on the verification, right? BGV is a lot about follow-ups, turnaround times, insufficiencies, documents, doing first level of QC to see if the document uploaded is correct. You have to upload an address bill, and say people end up uploading a PAN card, for example, because they've selected a wrong file. That will go to a operations team. They will manually check and say wrong document, come back to you. All of this will take away 2 days and time wasted. Can you do it right on the form and say, oh, this looks like a wrong document? Can you please double check? But don't block them, right? Give them a warning, because AI is not perfect. It's not 100% true. It's not 100% correct. Can you at least find 7 out of 10 cases? Sure. So that's where I think it starts, which is why I said accuracy might not be there or might not be helping, but definitely helping with the turnaround time and increasing the speed as of now.
Yeah, those are great points. So, Jyotish and Deepu, talking about that integrating maybe something like this into the flow, improve not experience of platform like Zappy higher.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to it. So from a customer perspective, especially enterprises, they don't want to have disconnected systems in place. They want to have it's a value chain, right? If you look at it, starting from a manpower requisition all the way to the candidate joining the organization and delivering their results or expected responsibility, it's a single value chain. So every single system that is in the ecosystem and or in that fabric, people want them to talk to each other. And it's not just about, maybe there was a time when people are okay with the disconnected systems and they consolidated the data in Excel sheet. That is gone. Then there was a second case, phase wherein people wanted to ensure that the data is passed on to different systems. That is where the Zapier or all those Apache Camel, a lot of those integration platforms came into picture, wherein the data started talking to each other via communication or transformation layers. Now it's a situation wherein it's not just about data being communicated between the system. They want to learn from each other. You know, if a certain parameters or attributes are displayed in a recruitment platform and then it goes to background verification, then they see that this candidate has this kind of red flags being raised. Is there something to learn so that you can apply it right from the moment the candidate applies for a job? So you want that intelligence, or you want that cohesive data representation in a bigger fabric, so that intelligent inputs can be, or intuitive inputs can be taken right from the word go, and all this data start talking to each other, and you are able to make insights out of it as if it's a single system. So from that standpoint, even when Karthik is saying that this BGV and all these things are important, it is also important to make this as a part of the single value chain. And that is when customers will get the best out of it. I hope I was just able to add that, Karthik. I mean, I hope that makes sense.
Right. I just add a one point there, as rightly Dibu mentioned, the talking each other and pull out the data and getting some inferences. On top of it, what is the action items from that inferences is also very important in order to take some of the right actions to correct some of the pitfalls we have identified in cases. Many times, I heard a question that can we connect Zapier with a PMS system, a performance management system? Basically, what they wanted to understand is, let's say you hired somebody and then they are person deployed into a particular project for the next 3 years or 4 5 years, how he performed in that, right? If the data is coming back to Zapier, definitely that the parameter we evaluated in order to bring that candidate, we can cross check and see if there is anything better we can do it, right? Or if probably is what is the or the other way around, meaning if if you understand there is an ideal candidate or an ideal employee who has been staying with our company for last 5 years, so we have mapped the characters of those guys and create a what do you call, a benchmark, and use that benchmark in Zappy Hire to do the hiring, right? Both ways. So that means what? So we are trying to utilize this data, create a sort of a framework on it, and cross use it in multiple systems so that we can get a better outcome from all this implementation for that particular company. Because it's not we are generically doing, right? For example, if a good employee in Springworks, probably not a good employee in Google, right? So because there are some characteristics works about Springworks, that's the reason why he stayed Springworks for like 5 years. So bring that attribute and use that attributes as a parameters or a benchmark, and then probably we can use in some other systems. So if you look at this entire application landscape of HR, there are many this kind of a cross learning opportunities, and then use this data in order to get some inferences and use it for multiple other functions within this landscape of systems. So for what I've perceived is that I think there's a great opportunity in future where every system talks each other, or a layer of communication protocol between all of the systems, and create a dashboard or inferences, bring that would lead to a call to actions in the later stages for the leaders. So with that, probably you see a lot of meaningful data coming from different systems.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jyotis. And I think, yeah, integrating and flowing data from seamlessly is the maybe the next steps in the future of the industry. So while we are a little over time, so we'll just be taking audience questions. If you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat. And while you wait, I have a question to all three of you. Like you guys have already touched on it, but how do you see the future of recruitment, or the entire industry as a whole? Where do you see in the next couple of years? What changes and what things will be going right? What things will go wrong? Jyotis, will start with you.
Uh,
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Deepu, why don't we start with you?
I think
no, no,
we
no, go on, go on, go on. Okay, so maybe so what I was just thinking was that because I probably can talk from a technology perspective. So the way we look at things is currently we are at the junction of, you know, there is a lot of human potential, a lot of experience on table, and then there is a lot of this technology innovation. So it's kind of we are at an intersection of this human potential and technological innovation. So at this point, what organizations have to think is that we have to now start reimagining how to, discover, how to develop, and how to connect these talents with the right technology in place, and also not to, consider that AI is going to replace the job, AI is going to make everything automated. It's going to be like a strategic partner in unlocking that, heavy human potential that we have. Where you can make a lot of right decisions faster. You can make a lot of high quality, interventions as and when required, make the overall process faster so that you can deliver more. You know, so the way I look at things, how it will go in the future is more of technology, which will make I would say, like what we call in Zappy here, make your recruiter a super recruiter or a superhuman recruiter. Like end of the day, we want the people to be on one side, the recruiters to be super recruiters, and on the other side, candidates to get the best out of the recruitment process. Even if they don't get the job, there should be something which they will be able to take away from that 15 to 20 days that they really spend on an average in pursuit of a particular job. So this technology intervention and engagement is going to be the key, and that is going to be the differentiator going forward. So again, three dimensions. One, candidate I told about that, recruiters I told about. The third one is companies like Springworks or Zapier, where we have this moral responsibility of bringing the right, unbiased, ethical algorithms in place so that you are literally helping them, because there will be a time when people will understand that these systems are just giving some generic things, shouldn't go into that place, right? Even if we go a bit slow, we have to ensure that we are giving something which recruiters or candidates can depend and rely on. So I would say the onus is on the organization, recruiters, and on the vendors like Zapier and Springworks to deliver something ethical, unbiased, and meaningful. So that's my take. Side.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add up 2 points on that side. Uh, what I have seen is in last 2 3 years, we were super excited about the technology, and we were started talking about the technologies and especially Gen AI and so on and so forth. But the recent survey came out with the results where it says that only 70 to 80 percentage of companies adopted AI in the recruitment and HR functions. So we're just starting off, right? I mean, we talked a lot, but when it comes to the implementation, we are still somewhere in the very starting point. So what I would envision is that for next 3 to 4 years, I would see that companies, especially large and small, medium-sized companies, would adopt the AI, especially Gen AI, and there are a lot of use cases will come out from that aspect as well. And voice AI is going to be a play big role in the next 3 to 4 years. Like Karthik already mentioned about one use cases, and I see there are a lot of use cases, that very interesting use cases, which may happen in the future. You don't know even, a system can take an exit interview in future, right? So which probably people will have a lot of apprehensions to tell about the companies and their culture while they're moving out. They probably think that, maybe I'll be more open to an AI instead of a human. So I'm sure that this is going to be a continue in terms of the innovations, and there are a lot of adoption is going to happen. That's what I'm going to see in the next 2 3 years. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Those are great points. I think, yeah, I think the exit interview part was very interesting. Uh, Karthik, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I would say like it's just AI everywhere, right? Like we will be shocked with the results. And every time I say, every time I think that okay, I know what AI can do, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month later, there's a new use case, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even expect. So there are things happening in the world which we don't even know of, and behind the scenes, right? There's so much. All we can do as HRs is be at the forefront, right? Keep using. Yes, it's not perfect, it's not accurate, it will have issues, it will have bugs, people will hate you, people will dislike you, people, oh, you've automated your job, all of those things. This very, very classic with the new technology. It's always that you have to take a leap of faith and do this, take a risk and do that. And in a year, I think the people who are at the forefront will see the benefits of this.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this was it. We don't have any questions as of now from the audience. I think we are too good. Okay. So we'll wrap up. And I would love to thanks Karthik, Deepu, and Jyotis for joining. I think for me, and I think for many people watching live as on LinkedIn and on here as well, it is a great informative session and talking about the apprehensions and all, and how to address it as well, and areas where we can use AI, when to use AI, stages, and as well as maybe integrating those part with BGV and things we can keep in mind, and would really help to all those HR recruiters over here. And I think we have a question.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sahil.
I think it's from Sandeep. Yes, Sandeep. This is something which is in our roadmap also. So the one which we were talking about, SAPI View, which is like an AI-driven interview platform right now, as Deepu was mentioning before, it can also give you the feedback of that interview to the candidates, right? So with a very slight modification, it can be a mock interview platform. In fact, some of the use cases we are talking about, talking to a couple of customers, also the same, where they can take multiple rounds of interviews as a mock interview and get the feedback from the AI and prepare based on the same for the next, right? So definitely, this is an interesting use cases which has been already exploring with a couple of customers as of now, and it can be easily integrated to any existing workflows or existing systems you have. Let's say if you're using any ATS or HRMS, we can definitely integrate with that. So for example, if you're using Soho Recute as an ATS, ZappyView is already in the marketplace as of now. So you can just go and buy the ZappyView as a credits from the marketplace of Zoho Recruit, and day one onwards you can start using it. So that's not limiting there. We have multiple other integrations also possible. Please touch base with us in case if you want to explore this use case.
Yeah. Thanks, Jyotis. Okay. Thanks a lot, Karthik, Deepu, and
Thank you,
Jyotis.
everyone. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.